In the previous capacitor memory video, I built a working memory circuit that stores each bit of data in an electrolytic capacitor. And when I expanded it to 8 bytes of RAM, I was even able to hook it up to the relay computer and then use it to store and run a small program. And I'm going to admit that I'm still amazed that this thing actually works at all. But now that it does, I think that there's some opportunities for some improvements that I can make before I go further with building out a PCB design for this. And for example, I think that I can reduce the number of relays in this circuit and also address a small problem with the clearing of the capacitors. And then finally, I also want to experiment with using some smaller capacitors and see how low I can go. I always look for opportunities to reduce the components once a prototype is working, and in this case, my target is the sheer number of relays. So I'm going to start with a more obvious one, which is this relay that's used to clear the capacitor before each write cycle. There are currently 8 of these relays all doing the same thing, so I think that one relay can do the same job just by feeding all the bit lines through some well-placed diodes. Another opportunity to reduce relays is to use one memory read relay to service 2 of the bit lines, and then optimize a bit further by using some diodes instead of relays to control signal direction. And with the relays reduced, I can now focus on creating a small delay during the discharge of the capacitors. And I need to do this because in the current prototype, the discharge is so brief that there is residual voltage left in the capacitor, which can sometimes cause a false high value. So I'll add a capacitor to the clearing relay, which should extend the discharge while still falling within the timing of a typical memory write cycle. And on the board, the whole thing looks like this. Like the original circuit, this is a rinse and repeat for the other bits, so I'm going to take some time and extend this to at least 4 bits. And since I'm going to be doing a lot of testing, I think that now is a good time to start experimenting with some smaller capacitors. So I'm going to start off by replacing half of the 680 microfarad capacitors with the smaller 220 microfarad ones, just so that I can test them side by side. Next, it's time to rev up the Arduino for some automated testing that will write and read test values for each bit across all 8 of the memory address locations. And now that I've extended this new prototype to 8 bits, I can hook it all up and see if I can use the front panel to write and read values for this new design. So before doing this test, I've cleared out all of the previous test data that I've had in my whopping 8 bytes of memory. So what I'll do is I'll start off by toggling in these first couple of high bits and doing a deposit, and that puts that into location 0. And then what I'll do is I'll just walk over these 2 bits, do a deposit next, and then so on and so on. So in each subsequent memory location, we're just seeing that pattern shifting to the right. So I'm going to keep going here. And we have 1 location left, so I don't know, I'll just put this one down and do that. There we go. Okay, so if I now set the address back to 0, do an examine, we can see that we have our first byte in the pattern. And if I now step through the memory locations, we can see that the capacitor memory has correctly stored those values, which is awesome. Now that I'm sure that the new memory read and write design is working, I can finally start thinking about what the physical design of this memory will be. We will need to address 128 bytes of capacitor memory, which will require decoding the lower 7 bits of the address bus, and this in turn will require a whopping 64 relays to make this happen. On a single PCB, we'd also need to house the 1024 capacitors plus those 64 relays we mentioned before, and then all of the associated diodes. And this drawing doesn't even include the need for traces or connection points. And by now it's pretty clear that 128 bytes of capacitor memory won't fit on my standard cards, but what about 32 bytes? Well, 32 bytes would require 256 capacitors and 46 relays, so it would be an uncomfortably tight fit. But how about going further to 16 bytes? That would fit nicely on the card and leave enough room for the traces and diodes. And while 16 bytes is far short of my goal, I could leverage an onboard 328 decoder using the higher 3 bits of the address. And with that, I should be able to address enough 16-byte cards to make up a full 128 bytes of RAM. And with this new decoder and an 8-position card select added to the mix, it looks like I can finally start designing the PCBs. I've been working on this prototype for months, so it's great to finally be at this point. And while I'm used to the layout of relays on my existing cards, this one was different because of the 128 capacitors that needed to be closely tied to 2 diodes each. So to save space, I've opted to use both sides of the card, with the capacitors on the top side and then the diodes underneath. And then once everything was in place, it was time to send it off to my good friends at PCB Way. This is my favorite kind of unboxing. And as always, the shipment arrived on time and in great condition, with the contents safely stowed in plenty of protective foam wrap. And as I'm removing the vacuum-sealed bubble wrap, I get my first look at how my homebrew prototype has now come to life in the form of a high-quality PCB. I absolutely love the design of this card and seeing that capacitor matrix just waiting to be filled in. And on the back of this board, there's also a silkscreen for the 256 diodes that will need to be installed on this side. So now it's time to crack open these bags of capacitors and get to work. I decided at this point to test the card with just 2 capacitors on the first byte. And although these first couple of bits worked initially, after a while, one or even both of them would just stop working. After some probing, I discovered that the 2 gating diodes and the clearing diode on the second bit line were all cooked. And these diodes are connected to a clearing operation, so this actually makes sense because when the capacitors are discharged, there's a 7 amp outrush of current that is frying the little 1N4148s that I'm using. And interestingly, this wasn't a problem on the prototype version, but I figure this is probably because of the inherent resistance from all of the wiring and being so spread out. But whatever the case, I'm going to upgrade to some 1N4006s, which have a much higher tolerance for this sort of current. And I'll start by removing all of the old clearing and gating diodes, and then clean up the through holes with my trusty solder remover before adding the 32 replacement diodes. And after a quick test to confirm these new diodes did the trick, I'll go ahead and populate the first bytes with capacitors so that I can get on with more testing. Before I go too much further, I'm going to give the card select a workout by setting it up as card number 2, which now addresses memory locations 16 through 31. And when we examine address 16, we see that the card activates correctly. And then when I deposit a value in address 16 and re-examine that address, we also see the correct value. But here's where things get weird. If I now select address 0 and hit examine, this should not affect what was already stored at address 16 since the card would not be selected. But when I re-examine address 16, that value is now 0. And that's when I noticed that this read LED is flashing even though the card is not being activated, which means that I've made a huge blunder in the card select design. So I'll explain the error of my ways, starting with the write circuit. When the card is active, it supplies power to the gating relays, so when a memory write is active, relays are able to redirect the supplied power to the write enable circuit. And unfortunately, I have the memory read control line wired directly to the read circuit, which connects the output of the capacitors to the read and rewrite circuits. But because the card isn't selected and no power is available for the rewrite of the data, the capacitor is simply draining as it briefly powers the read relay. To solve this, I can cut the memory read trace from the first relay and then bodge wire the voltage through another relay, which worked, but then uncovered another problem with the write circuit. And after all of the cuts and tweaks, this was the state of the nation. Multiple bodge wires, more trace cuts, a new timing capacitor, and 2 extra relays added to the mix.
Several days of obsessive troubleshooting later.
So after all of that trace cutting and bodge wiring on this card, can I at least say it works? Well, no, or maybe more like sort of, because I did get the read and write functionality to work on this thing, but that's now uncovered another issue, and that's to do with the timing on the card select decoder. Because when the higher memory cards are selected, it takes this onboard address decoder a few milliseconds to activate the card voltage. And this in turn is eating into the time needed to charge the delay capacitor for the clearing circuit. Now I've tried for the last few days to see if I could somehow bodge wire my way out of this card select decoder timing issue, but there's just no way without revising the overall circuit. So it is official. I have to surrender myself to the fact that this version of it will simply not work from a card select perspective. But that said, it's still usable as a card by itself. The read-write works, and I should be able to populate the rest of it, plug it into the machine, and see it run some code. And if that works, I'll call it progress. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time, hopefully with a few less bodge wires than in this episode. Yeah, that was meant for you. Yeah. Yay! You win!